Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
And a good morning to you on a Wednesday, June 15th. Glad to be able to be here with you. It's a big day in Pittsburgh because the Penguins are going to be parading the Stanley Cup through the streets in about 90 minutes. But it's still a sad day in this country as we continue to try to come to terms with the inexplicable horror that occurred in Orlando. I have come upon a number of things that I'd like to share with you about it. One which I don't know heartened me, and I'll just send it out there for what it's worth. We have spoken before on the program about how sometimes after the death of a loved one, people will feel that the loved one has returned somehow in the form of a butterfly or a bird that all of a sudden appears in an unusual way. And I myself have had that experience with a hummingbird, a very odd experience that just, there was no doubt in my mind, and I'm not someone inclined to believe this kind of thing. There was just no, and I'd never heard that before, that birds, so it was so clear to me that hummingbird who stopped right in front of me and eyeballed me for an incredibly long time was, in fact, Athena. I just knew it. And so many other people have had these kinds of occurrences. And I don't know if you heard that a photographer, I believe yesterday, covering a memorial for the victims in Orlando, happened to take a picture it was outdoors, as the names of the victims were being read under a beautiful, clear blue sky. All of a sudden, a flock of birds just came out of nowhere and appeared over the memorial. She snapped the picture. Only later did she look at it again, and something, who knows what, compelled her to count the birds. 49. 49. These were not birds that were released by anybody, although another memorial had, and I'm not sure if it was in Orlando, released 49 doves during a similar event. These were just 49 birds that appeared and sort of continued to fly over this gathering of people who were reading the names, the 49 names. I don't know why, but that's well, we get comfort where we can. And while some may say, coincidence, come on, it's okay. You get comfort where you can. It's almost unbearable now to read the stories of these people, to feel like you know them. Almost unbearable. And I sort of have to force myself to do it. I'm sure some turn away, and I understand that too. but in some respects, it's the least we can do. I avoid stories about the perpetrator. I don't want to know him. I don't want to spend 1 second thinking about him. But all those beautiful young people. So, here's something else I came across. It's very because, as you know, we've been through this kind of thing so many times. You think there's nothing left to say, that we all just go back and repeat with maybe just a slightly higher level of frustration and rage and what we can do. I came upon something just moments ago that is different in terms of understanding what might be happening in regard to the motivation of these kinds of attacks. I've got a call. Hang on. Hello?
Hello, Lynn.
Yes.
It's funny you should say that story because my father-in-law and mother-in-law passed away. One passed away 12 years ago, the other 18 years ago. And we live in their house, and my wife would always smell her mom's perfume. And
Wow.
I told her when I first moved in the house, I said I could smell Thanksgiving dinner cooking because she used to cook it there. And I said it was the weirdest thing. And there was nothing down there that would be that smell.
And you
I
really,
didn't
really,
smell it anymore.
really,
Yeah.
it was
then-
that clear. It was that, isn't
And
that
then-
something?
I saw after he died, like you say, 2 butterflies, like they're together now. It was the strangest thing, and I'm not a real religious
No,
person.
me either.
I do believe in the spiritual world and all that, but I believe it's science. Other people say, oh, it's God and all that. I think there could be a soul that's part of the body. It could be like an organ of the body, and it goes off into somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that. That's possible. But the rest of the stuff I don't. But that's strange you would say that about butterflies.
And birds.
Yeah, I
And-
never experienced the birds, but the butterfly and that smells. She said every once in a while she'll smell like her perfume. And she said, I didn't move anything that would cause that smell.
Isn't that? There's something so comforting about it.
Yeah, she said she knows they're there.
Yeah, I understand. But 49 birds
Yeah,
out
that's
of nowhere.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Bye. Bye. What's better than smelling Thanksgiving dinner cooking? What a wonderful way to be reminded of someone you loved. So I came upon something that I think is so smart. As you see the attempt to understand what the hell's going on, what motivated this SOB, what ISIS, mental illness, homophobia, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of, I think, wise people have said it's probably some kind of a amalgam of all. It's not so easily pinpointed. But here's the thing. Here's a smart thing I haven't heard anyone say before. And this comes from Barbara Starr, the old battle axe of a correspondent. She covers the Pentagon for CNN. But she wrote about the fact that she happened to be talking to someone who she describes as one of the most senior and experienced counterterrorism officials in the Middle East. And he was telling her that the West, I guess that's us and Europe, is really failing to fully understand the impact of this thing called ISIS. And he told her, we've got to get our heads around this. It is not an army. It is not really a religion. It's not even a movement. What it now is is a label. It's a brand. It's a label. It's a label that every crazed, upset, homophobic, racist, mentally unstable, angry, lost young man anywhere in the world can now say that they are a part of. So that someone who might before have wanted to go and just tell the world how angry they were, how they couldn't, they have this anger that has no meaning, that they can't parse but drives them to violence. Now, they have something. ISIS. And so you hear from the FBI, who interviewed him, that he really didn't seem to be ISIS because he couldn't even tell the difference between Hezbollah and ISIS and Taliban. He didn't know. Some of these guys are warring with each other. He didn't have a clue. But we're all schooled now in how ISIS is a way, if you put that banner up, that's a way to make yourself immediately important. World-changing. And because they're saying that his embrace of ISIS seems so odd, and it seems to me like that is one of the smartest things I have heard in a long time. And so, throughout the world now, all of these young men, if they want to act out, to go down in a blaze of bullets and glory, perceived as a hero by millions perhaps, they simply have to wrap themselves in that label. And ISIS loves this. Everyone who wraps themselves in that label only enhances the label. So, some other expert who is an assistant secretary of Homeland Security said the same thing. We've got to understand there's not a single motivation for this, for most of these attacks. Think of the killers in the nightclub in the concert in Paris. They had criminal records. These often are lost young men with no direction. And here is something to hang on to. So each one of these guys, for us then to elevate them as part of some large army of sorts with tentacles all over the world is not correct. In fact, these are often deranged individuals looking for something powerful to wrap themselves up in, whether they even understand it or not. So that's why you have the head of the FBI saying about this jerk, it is not entirely clear just what terrorist group he was aspiring to support. Forget the 911, I'm doing this for ISIS. My gut tells me closeted, gay, self-loathing homophobe. That's my, because given that his father was clearly homophobic, is clearly homophobic, he was stuck. His religion told him that what he feared he was something awful, an abomination. I find this idea really smart. So Barbara Starr said this guy she spoke to, who she calls one of the leading experts on this kind of terror, he said, what we're looking at perhaps in many ways is simply a danger of those who are just plain mad at the world and are looking for a justification that will elevate them and justify their being able to kill, to spray their rage out. So specific motivations may no longer really be the thing we've got to ferret out. And whether the attack was ISIS inspired or ISIS, ordered or whatever, is just really rather irrelevant. Although you have to look if there was some, other people involved that takes you back. This guy will prove to have no direct line back. I'll bet you. So she goes on to say that, under Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, for instance, and still today, as much as it continues to exist, is always looking for the next big score. But ISIS really is not. It doesn't have to. Because it can send nations reeling, kill civilians from Paris to Brussels to San Bernardino to Orlando by just being this label. And this guy suspects that even the leader of ISIS, al-Baghdadi, must be astonished by what he's managed to set off. The creation of a terror group that defies counterattack simply because you can't pin it down at all. Caller, go ahead, please.
Yes, Lynn.
Yes.
In my opinion, it's too nuanced, it's too complex for us as Americans. We want a simple,
well, yes,
like Pablo, like we feed the little birds.
Yeah.
Can't take this. It's too complex, and people say, "I just want a simple answer, and that's it. Wrap it up in a bag and throw it away."
Right.
And when you given these last two shows have been great.
Thank you.
Taught me so much about like Donald Trump yesterday with how he's. I think he is what you said yesterday with that guy who wrote the article about Trump. That was very insightful. And what you're saying today is just. And as Americans, we're not reading, we're not studying, we're not learning. We want Pablo. And I don't think, I don't see any, I just wrap my hands and say, I don't know what to do. And what you said about the self-loathing homosexual, I think definitely. I told my friend this yesterday, definitely. I mean, it's,
yeah.
He just put, like you said, he put a brand on there and it sounds scary and it sounds frightful. He doesn't know what the hell it means.
No.
And I'm scared for us. As citizens, because like I said, the lack of reading, the lack of insight, people don't read newspapers anymore. They just want quick sound bites. The news media gives us quick little sound bites, and we just run around and say, I got a sound bite that's going to knock you down to the ground. And then you think, that's silly. That's so simple and childish. So I don't know, Lynn.
I hear you completely, and I agree. It's frightening, the sort of laziness of most people in terms of their ability to use their heads and acknowledge the complexity of life. It's
exactly.
just too
and
much.
Most religious fundamentalists, I always tell people this. They want things. It's easy to follow a religion that tells you what to think. Here's the black and white answer, and don't question it. Just believe what we tell you from the pulpit or from your whatever your denomination is, and it's just listen to me. I have all the answers. And but life is so gray, different, so many shades of gray. It's not black and white. Nobody's black and white.
Nope.
And it's. Here's on a positive note, Doug. I'm going to leave it a positive note.
Good.
Had something very wonderful happen to me. Almost brought tears to my eyes. And what did actually? I went to McDonald's this morning, and there's a line where there's two cars can go through. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but there's two.
Oh yes.
Pop-up windows.
Yes. Okay.
And the lady was in front of me, and I just said, "Go ahead." We didn't know who to go first, so she said, "Go ahead." I said, "Go ahead and go, lady. I don't care." And then I got to the window, and I don't know what's wrong with me anymore. She paid for my meal. That's the first time that ever happened to me.
Oh wow.
From Adam, she didn't know me, but I felt,
Well, you done her a good deed, and good things, positive things, do. One builds on the other. A little wave of your hand results in her wanting to do that for you.
Yeah, it just hit me so hard. I drove away. I said, "Oh my God."
Isn't that nice?
Believe it.
And you know what? She felt good, too. So there were two people leaving that McDonald's drive-through feeling pretty darn good.
Yes, and then if I can relay that to you guys, and maybe you think there is hope, hopefully the couple flickers of hope out there.
We all know in our lives there are so many wonderful people in this world.
Exactly, and it gets so drowned out by the negativity and sorrow and sadness that it's like there is flames out there, and hopefully I tried on my personal life, just try to post some, give a little bit of light in the world instead of smoke and fire and hatred.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much. Why can't we just, live that way? Instead of, think of all the choices we make every day. Little teeny ones, turn left, turn right. Say hi, don't bother. Give someone a pat on the back or head in the other direction. Whatever. And I think, wasn't it Anne Frank who said she thought that most people in the world were good or had more good in them? We can't let this attention that must be paid to what the bad ones do cloud our own perception of life as we live it. I don't think most of us in our daily lives feel that the people we're interacting with are bad people. We might not really like that one or this one, but they're not evil. And, people basically generally are good, I think. But boy, there are some. And they can pull our attention away and confuse us and rattle us and destabilize us and scare us. I want to talk also about something that has become clear in the wake of this latest horror. It has to do about gay people, right? I think we've all been blown away that's not the right thing to say, astonished by the progress that the gay community has made in the last 20 years. I mean, just incredible. I don't think any of us thought we would see gay marriage by now. But let's be clear. There are a whole bunch of Americans who aren't anywhere near to comprehending it, understanding it, taking it in. They just are stuck where most of us were for centuries. We're stuck with what we've been taught by our religious leaders, by our families. When you think of how long gay people had to live in the shadows, and it's only recently that they have, thank God, come out. And every one of us has had to recalibrate, has had to grow, has had to learn, and we're still doing it. The transsexuals now are pushing us further. People of goodwill will make an effort, I think. But some people, and they're not necessarily bad people, but some people are very frightened by things they don't know, by things they can't wrap their heads around. And they're bolstered in that by their religions. We spoke of this somewhat yesterday. So it's been noted now that there are a number of politicians and religious leaders and others who, in the wake of this horror, have refused to acknowledge that it was an attack on gay people. They speak of it as they would of any of the prior mass murders perpetrated by a Muslim, because that they got their heads around. And it is time, it is long past time, that religious leaders of all faiths speak truth. Dare to say this was an attack on our gay sons and daughters and brothers and sisters. Frank Bruni wrote today something, and he said, he has noted this too, and he said, statements by the Bishop of Orlando and by the President of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops about the slaughter in Orlando said nothing about it being a gay target. Try to take that in. It is akin to, after the horror in the church, the black church, where those beautiful people were mowed down by that hateful, deranged young man. As if it wasn't noted that it was a black church. If it was whitewashed and was talked about only as a church was attacked. Or Christians were attacked. And a lot of Republican lawmakers, I'm going to call out Mitch McConnell especially since he's in a leadership position, have refused to use the obvious adjective for who these innocent murder victims were. They were gay. Now, Bruni writes that some Catholics who saw these statements from the Conference of Catholic Bishops and from the Orlando Bishop were appalled. I mean, were very aware that these statements were like, what? What? That there was something really missing here. And one, a Jesuit priest, the Reverend James Martin, was so enraged that he recorded a video on Facebook, which apparently has gone viral. And in part he said, if the murders had happened, God forbid, in a church of a particular Christian denomination, Catholic leaders would decry the murders and then naturally express their solidarity with members of that denomination. But they did not do that for this group of victims, for these grieving in the LGBT community. Now, obviously, there are exceptions. The Bishop of St. Petersburg, he wrote, in fact, he conceded that religion, including his, often, this is his words, often breeds contempt for gays, lesbians, and transgendered people. And he said, and we must be clear that this contempt can lead to violence. And then he told his followers, you must understand that all are made in the image and likeness of God. That God doesn't say only heterosexuals or only this or only that. There were no exclusions if you're a person of faith. And the Bishop of St. Petersburg said, we teach that, and we must stand for that. Hate doesn't come out of a vacuum. Hate is nurtured, it's suckled. Hate festers anywhere where a group of people, where a minority group is somehow culled from the rest of us and vilified in some way, or made to be not us. This is where hate comes from. And this is the kind of hate that Donald Trump is trafficking in, obviously. He's got lots of groups. I mean, take your pick. If it ain't Mexicans, it's Muslims. And he uses that, us, as opposed to them, for, of course, his political gain. His lust, satisfying his lust for power. And the New York Times editorial page says today, let's be quite honest about this. Way too often, Republican politicians view prejudice and hate and bigotry as something not to try to extinguish, but in fact, quite the opposite, as something to exploit. Right. They point out that since the Supreme Court's legalization of gay marriage, several Republican-led state legislatures and Republican governors and Republican congresspeople have redoubled their fight against legal protections for people because of their sexual orientation. We know that. So far this year, in fact, they say more than 200 clearly anti-LGBT bills have been introduced in 34 states, all of them introduced by members of the Republican Party, who understandably now have nominated, or soon will, Donald Trump, a clear and obvious hater, as their leader. Let's be clear. Trump says that if he becomes president, he will only choose Supreme Court justices who will overturn marriage equality. Governor of Mississippi says, in fact, signed into law already, a bill that allows discrimination against gays in schools in Mississippi, in places of employment in Mississippi, and let us not kid ourselves, in our state of Pennsylvania, there is no law preventing an employer from doing that as well. And the only reason is because Republicans, and I call out Daryl Metcalf, right over there in the North Hills, as the main reason. A bill that would give LGBT people protection in Pennsylvania cannot get out of the committee that he heads. So the Times says this: as the funerals are held for those who perished on Sunday, lawmakers who have actively championed discriminatory laws and policies, and those who have quietly enabled them with votes, should force themselves to read every single obituary and look at the photos and look at those beautiful, dead young men and women and understand that they are dead because they are casualties, in part, without a doubt, of a society that enables hatred of gays. So, I have a lot of trouble listening to certain politicians and others mouth the words about praying for, and then, of course, avoiding the gay thing and trying to exploit the Muslim thing. I have a lot of trouble listening to that hypocrisy when their hands have blood on them. You cannot take the gay out of this. Here's another amazing thing. Here's one hopeful thing. I think her name's Gretchen Carlson. She's a Fox News anchor. She flat out went off script yesterday and said, why should anybody own one of these goddamn things? This is insane. A Fox News anchor. Even, apparently, Bill O'Reilly last night said something like, what? It doesn't make a lot of sense for someone to have, even he. This should give us a measure of hope that now some who have been enablers and powerful enablers of the NRA are starting to just a little bit ask the questions that we've been asking forever. This is heartening. And then, of course, well, I don't even want. By the way, I want to give you some numbers now. Numbers usually don't stick in people's heads, but this is amazing. I heard an interview this morning of, who was it? That loathsome Representative Stephen King of the state of Iowa. This guy is horrifying. And he was being asked about the fact that this guy, who the FBI had on a watch list, how he could walk in and buy this stuff. And Stephen King actually said, well, because he still has rights as an American citizen. He very clearly put the right of a guy on the FBI's list to buy an AR-47 ahead of the lives of these 49 people. We've got a call. Caller, go ahead, please.
Yes, Clarence.
Hi, Clarence.
Hope I'm not calling it inopportune timing now with the delay.
Go ahead.
But when you were talking about the two Fox anchors, Bill O'Reilly, something popped into my head, so I said, let me get this out quick. Is it because the shooter this time was a Muslim? Is that why they're starting to question?
Oh, so now they realize that Muslims can get guns here.
Yeah, could get those, AR-15s or whatever.
Yeah, whatever the hell.
That, all the other shootings were done by, white guys.
It might be. It might have made it easier for them to get there.
Yeah, to get there. Yeah, that's the first thing,
Mm-hmm.
It's an assumption, but it's the first thing. I'm like, well, what's different now than all the other shooters? Oh, that's right, it was a Muslim.
That's right. It wasn't a white Christian kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, you might be right about that.
And even if they don't realize it, you know what I mean? It's one of those subconscious things. Oh, geez, I was a brown guy with a different religion shooting up people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that same thing with they're not mentioning gays.
Right.
The groups that's not mentioning gays, because they're more afraid. They're Muslims with guns, and that's more scary.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's really something.
The only thing that I said about it, well, I was arguing on the internet about guns and all that stuff, but that's par for the course.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing is people are talking about this is shocking, this is surprising, and I keep going, why? Why is this shocking and surprising? Do you just erase? To me, it should be expected. Now it should just be expected. It's like, oh, they have somebody, and it just sounds cold, but it's like, wow, that's a big number of people. But to me, I wasn't shocked, and I wasn't.
No, how can we be shocked? I mean, we've been. Come on, it's the new normal in this country. Mass murders are what we do, unlike any other nation on earth.
And thank goodness, I haven't listened for a couple of days because I've been busy. Mm-hmm. But did you talk about the Samantha Bee thing on?
I didn't talk about what her particular. No.
Yeah, but that was so well done.
Mm-hmm.
That was well done. And making a point. And once again, I said it's a shame that comedians.
That's it.
make better points than our so-called politicians and intellectuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we've come to. The clowns now are the truth tellers.
Yeah.
It's sort of like Shakespearean in that the jesters were often the truth tellers, right?
Yeah.
So this is where we are.
I'm actually upset that you brought that up because I wanted to sound smart.
You are smart, Clarence.
Yeah. That and but Obama's speech.
Yeah.
What was the end? What he was talking about? What they say? Islamic terror.
The magic words.
The magic words. Yeah. Yeah. And I said, see, that's right on point. And nobody argued. Nobody I tried to provoke an argument who always talk about that. Why doesn't he call them? Radical Islam. Why don't you use these words? And when I showed him that, and it was almost that he was ridiculing the whole idea of it.
Well, sure.
And,
so what will the words do?
Yeah.
Abracadabra, radical Muslim. Good, we beat him.
We beat him.
Gee
I
whiz.
even put on one post, I told people, I am really tired of people blaming Obama for everything. And I said, why? Because it was me. I'm the most powerful, mystical person in the universe. And I said, I said it was me that made the dinosaur goes extinct. Yeah, you think Noah built the ark because of God? No, that was me. It was all me. Just to point out that how ridiculous it is that somehow one human being can save the world because he's president of the United States.
Yeah.
And I get no arguments.
Well, yeah, at least they're, I guess, smart enough to back away then. Mm-hmm. But thank you, Clarence.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye. I wanted to bring up these numbers because, listen to this. Since 2004, so in the last 12 years, 2,477, okay, about 2,500 people who are on the FBI watch list have applied to purchase weapons in this country. Okay, 2,500, they're on the watch list, and they apply for weapons. How many of them got what they wanted? 91%. You're on the FBI watch list, and you can go in and do what this guy did and buy weapons of mass destruction because this country values this revolting idea of what the Second Amendment is over the lives of innocent Americans. The rate last year for those on the watch list that applied, that received the weapons they wanted, 95%. And the reason is the Republicans in Congress have refused any effort to close that loophole, that gaping chasm of irrationality and stupidity. It's interesting that Republicans always talk so much about security and protecting America. And then they stand against an effort to keep weapons of mass destruction out of the hands of people who the FBI thinks could potentially be agents of our destruction. How, in the name of God, can anyone stand with that? I'm sorry, I haven't checked your emails. Let's see. I've been babbling ad nauseum here. Well, you haven't sent me any. What the hell's that about? You're kidding. Okay. Another little thing I came upon that I thought was worth passing on. This from a column by Tom Friedman. Two things he said. I've lived too long in the Muslim world and experienced the decency of Muslim communities to believe that this kind of violence and hate is the essence of Islam. But I have seen too much of this violence for too long to believe that it has nothing to do with the puritanical, anti-gay, anti-transgender, anti-female, anti-religious pluralism version of Islam that is too often promoted in this world, including by our great friends, the Saudis. The websites, the social networks, the mosques that promote these intolerant ideas can set off lost souls anywhere in the world. It just harkens right back to what we were talking about. And the fact that religion, because I will pull out what he's saying and say it's not just Islam here. It is fundamentalism in all religions that gives aid and comfort to hate. Not only aid and comfort, but teaches it. Christian churches some Jews, believe me. Muslims, a lot. A lot of this is being taught under the guise of a God. A God. So he says as long as religion can continue to preach, can continue to divide us and pull us off and condemn whole groups of people, we're just waiting around for the next Paris, for the next Orlando, for the next Brussels, the next San Bernardino. Come on, don't kid yourselves. And then Friedman goes where I don't have the nerve to go. Stop for a moment, he says, and reflect on what this week would have been like had Donald Trump been president. The carpet bombing he'd have ordered in the Middle East, the fear and isolation his Muslim ban would have engendered in every American of Muslim faith, the joy that ISIS would have taken from being at war with all of America, the license this would have given to crazies in our own society to firebomb a mosque, to attack a Muslim, and the backlash that would engender among Muslims all over the world, the most radical of whom would be firebombing our embassies around the world. Because when America goes nuts, the whole world goes nuts. And let's be honest. America is right now, more than at any time, certainly in my lifetime, is very close to going nuts. And as the president said yesterday, with Donald Trump pointing his fingers at immigrants and Muslims and suggesting that all Muslims somehow know about this stuff and they're keeping it to themselves. So every Muslim American, in Donald Trump's view, is aiding and abetting the terrorists. And in Donald Trump's view, the president, he suggests, is a traitor to this country because he too is aiding and abetting the terrorists. And as the president asked a simple question, where does this stop? You're immediately reminded of that famous question asked by the Protestant minister, I believe, in Germany. Where does it stop? First, they came for the fill in the blank. I said nothing, because I wasn't one. Then they came for the fill in the blank. Mexicans, immigrants, Jews, unionists, whatever. Fill in the blanks, because this is how demagoguery works. You define a group, you pull them out of the hole, and then you go after them. And everybody else is so happy that they're not part of that group. And then all of a sudden, bango, they find themselves in a group. And little by little by little by little, and then they came for me. And there was no one left. Where does this end? Asked the president. And that is a question that every American needs to ask. And I, for one, take a pledge that with me, it ends now. And I will do everything I can to ensure that in any way that I can push back against my country going insane and falling for the evil blatherings of a crazy autocratic megalomaniac. I found this little item in the local paper, and if you're interested, we always say, wringing our hands, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Here's something we can do right tonight. You know, and I suppose most people will look at it and say, yeah, but, you know, but here. There's one thing you could do tonight. Just saying. Ceasefire Pennsylvania, which is a group trying to enact reasonable gun legislation, and Amnesty International are going to hold a meeting tonight about gun-related violence. It's at 6 p.m., It's in the Hill District at the Grayson Community Center. I'm sorry I don't have an address. Grayson Community Center. And there'll be a few presentations. And then everyone there is going to sit down at tables and write letters to legislators. That is something we can do. I will tell you, and I know, that if every legislator in Harrisburg were deluged on a daily basis with letters from constituents saying, just want you to know, This now is number one with me. You can represent me, or you can shill for the NRA, but you can't do both. And I'm going to be voting that way. Do you think if any of these spineless cowards that supposedly represent us would have a bag of mail dropped on their desk every day saying that, do you think they wouldn't pay attention? It starts with little acts like this. Following the speakers will be letter writing to state legislators, urging universal background checks for gun purchases and for mandatory reporting of lost or stolen guns. That's all they're doing. You don't even have to do that. Write your own damn letter, and then write another one, and get your neighbors, and get your church group, and get the PTA, and get any group you belong to sit down and do it. Stop wringing your hands, please. Act. Thanks. I'll see you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.